What's up everybody, Ab the Audicrat here, and today we're going to be going over my Reason 12 template. As most of you might know, Reason 13 is on the horizon, so before that comes out, I've been wanting to put this out for far too long. Hopefully you can get some value for this, add this into your own template, or in case you don't have a template, you might be able to pick some pointers up from this. Once Reason 13 drops, I'll probably make an updated video a couple months down the line, but let's get right into it. So let's start with the browser. So on the top left, you have your instruments and each manufacturer that make them, whether it's Reason Studios or Akai, goes down the list here. Same thing with the effects, utilities, and the players. The players are just Reason devices, but that's what the first four are. Then you have your Reason sounds, other sound banks that you can get from them, and then packs. I have another little series in the works pertaining to the packs, so stay tuned for that. And then, you can also put other folders here in case you want quick access, like your desktop and user. I think these actually are already there, but below that is where I modify it to my liking. So I have a template, which is this template, of course, that I just have here for easy access in case I want to just open it up quick. So that's this here. And then I have, new beats I'm working on that I call New Fire, recycle files, refills, this Reason 20 goodie bag. But the big thing I wanted to go over here was the favorites area. So one thing that I've noticed at least Reason 12 does not have. Reason 13 might have this, I don't know yet, but you can only filter a certain way here between your plugins. So you can filter between Reason devices, VST2, VST3, and then any duplicates, but you can't filter through different plugin types. So my way around that was you can make a favorite over here. There's a little plus sign down here. You can make a favorite here, and then I just drag and dropped a bunch of like plugins. So all the compressors that I use, all the de-essers I use, all the delays that I use, and you just go down the row. And it's really handy because, going through this and having to find things is time consuming. It can be, unless you don't have a lot of plugins, it might not be as big of a deal. But for me, I found this is really handy. I have one just for mastering plugins that I throw on my mix bus. Just a few things that really help speed up the workflow. In case you don't use this, you might want to give it a try. It can help you out and make things a little faster. All right, next up, we're going to go over the mixer. So a lot of this will make more sense once I go to the rack, but as you can see here, I have some tracks that are already there. I'm a huge fan of having individual mixer channels for each of my drum sounds. Then I bus those to its own drum bus. I love doing it that way. It gives you a lot more control over each individual sound. And again, I'll break down in the rack a little bit more why I do that. I have the same thing for a bass, and I have one for 3 different mimic devices, because a lot of the times I'm sampling. I'm a hip-hop producer, so if I have a long song and there's 3 different parts where I want to put them in 3 different mimic devices, I just bus them all to one in case I want to mix them together under one channel. Then on the right over here, I create my own mix bus too, in case I want to do any volume automation or any effects that I don't want to mess with this main channel out fader with, and this can just be handy to have. So it's basically like a secondary master fader, but you can do a lot more with it in terms of, like I said, automation. I mean, really mostly automation, but effects too. So next up is the effects send and returns. I don't mess with this area all that much. Sometimes I might automate some panning with the returns. Maybe I can start doing this more, but I don't really use this area too much. The master compressor, I don't use this either. Sometimes I'll use this as the rack plugin device, like on my master chain or like on my drum bus. But yeah, I tend not to use this really all that much. Now, the onboard effects, the EQ, the compressor, and the gate, I don't use these all that much either, and that just has to do with my signal flow. I do use the EQ sometimes, and it's really more for the end of my chain in case I want to throw like a high or a low pass on there. And it also has like a graphic display on there in case you want to see where your frequencies are. Again, I tend to use third-party stuff for that, but it is very handy to have. I just never was personally a fan of using the SSL style. If you look all the way up top, I don't mess with my gain inputs either. I used to set a lot of these to like -2, -3 in case some of my drum samples were just coming in too hot. But again, I just kind of mess with those within the device that I use. I use Mimic for my drums most times, so I just do it from there. The last thing I want to go over is this signal path section. So this is really important because I use a lot of third-party plugs. I use a lot of Reason stuff too, but I use inserts primarily. So I use those first. Then in case I want to use the channel EQ, I have it set to have the signal hit that next. case I want to put like a high or a low pass on something at the very end if something isn't quite right. And it has a graphic display, which I said before, which is handy. But you can rearrange this to really anything. So you can have the inserts come second. I think you can have the inserts come last, and you can mess with them here, whatever your preference is, but this is just the way I like to do it. All right, so let's start with the master section over here. These are the plugins that I put on my mix bus / master to give it a master, essentially. So the first thing I always have it go through is the virtual mix bus by Slate. Just gives it a nice little crunch. And then, I tend to tame down the 2 to 4K in case something's coming in way too hot. And then I like revival just for a little bit of the shimmer and then a little bit of kick on the low end. Other than that, it depends on what I'm doing. I tend to maybe throw on, another compressor from Slate on there, or the master bus compressor from Reason. And then I just have a couple loudness meters. And I also use VSX from Slate, which is really good in case you don't have a really good room to mix in. Now, for these purposes, for these videos, I can't have them on because when I'm making the beat, it won't sound right. I'll explain that in another video, but that's my my master area, I guess you can say. So these are all of my send effects. So I have a couple different distortions. I have a couple different delays with some reverb attached to the delay. And then I have another reverb that's just the reverb, and then another delay. So they all have their own purpose: quarter delay, eighth note delay. It all depends on what I'm doing, but that's what this is over here. So in case I need to edit any effects, I go there. This next area has to do with my drums. So I'm very, very, very big on control for my drums. So I have a dedicated drum bus, and I use Mimic for my drums. And then if you spin the rack around, you can see that I have each individual sound, if you put it on multi-slot mode, that goes into its own dedicated mixer channel. Then what I do for, let's say, the kick, I send the kick to a Spider Audio Merger Splitter, and then I send it to what I use for bass and for samples, because sometimes in the samples there's bass. So in case I just want to have a quick access to a sidechain, it's already set up. So once I load a kick and I make a drum beat, drum loop, and then I have a sample that I'm chopping up, and then there's some bass in there, I can pretty much just go right to Mimic and then go to Track Spacer, just a plugin that can do some quick sidechaining, and it's already there. And then I can just kind of tune it in exactly how I want the sidechain to happen, but that's a huge time saver just to have that set up already. I use a VU meter, this is one from Waves, to kind of start where I get my levels from, and it really just starts from the kick drum most times. So I'll just hit the kick drum until it's hitting right around 0, sometimes a little bit higher, and then I kind of go off of there. And then I only really use that there, but these are all the inserts that I use on my drum bus. It can vary. Sometimes I'll take one out, add one in, but I really like the virtual mix rack from Slate. Gives it there's a lot of dope saturation settings, really dope compressors, and then, Waves EQ, and then knock from Decap, but that's the insert effects that I have on my drum bus. So for my drum device itself, I use Mimic. As you can see, you just put it in multi-slot mode and you can put up to 8 different sounds in there, and then you have a lot of control over each of those samples. So if you want to, mess with the attack, you want to mess with really anything, the gain, the frequency, speed, that really helps too, in case you have like a short open hat or something, you want to make it longer. And then it has a lot of different dope stretch modes. Not going to get into the devices too much in this video, but that's what I use. So on to my sample presets. So I use Mimic for sampling also. I'm, a hip hop producer. I'm big in sampling. So in case I have a song I want to sample, depending on what parts of the song I want to chop up, I will load a sample right in here and then do all my, cutting of the samples here. Now, if there's different parts of the song I want to use, but I want to separate them out, I have 3 different Mimic devices that go to one bus channel. So in case all the mixing needs to be similar for the same song that I'm chopping up, just different parts of the song, it's all right here. So then I have it all going through this. Some of the presets I have on here, an F6 from Waves in there just to do some quick EQ. There's some dynamic capabilities in there. Then the virtual mix rack again, and then I have this for my sidechain also in case there's some heavy bass that I'm using in the sample. It's already going to be connected to my kick drum. That's how I do the sample setup. Pretty straightforward. Sometimes I'll delete a few of these in case I don't use them all, but it's just there ready to go. Makes things really easy. So for the bass, I have a bass mixer channel right here, and a couple presets here. So this also has Track Spacer, which is used for sidechaining in case I need to sidechain. A lot of the times I do. Now, I don't necessarily use this sound all the time, but if we go back to the browser, I have a whole area where I went through almost all the devices in Reason and picked out what I thought were the best bass sounds, at least for, what I produce and how I produce. And I put them all right here. So in case I want to just filter through them, I'll just drag and drop right onto the monotone here. And sometimes it's for a different device. You can just kind of keep going down here, make a dance saw. You can see it just kind of, it coincides with this over here. I don't use this too much, but the bassline generator is dope. This is another thing I want to start getting into a lot more, are the players from Reason. That'll be in more videos. You know, it just makes it easier to have these things in place already. So in case I just need a quick bass sound, in case I want to just immediately start chopping a sample, it's there. I'm always going to use this for my drums pretty much in any template that I have. And then we have everything over here like we already went over. So my master stuff and then the effects for the sounds. All right, so nothing crazy here on my sequencer. One thing I do like to have some blocks already here. It just saves a couple seconds. It's nothing crazy, but I know I'll usually start with, you know, a 2-bar, maybe a 4-bar loop. But for my drums, it's just here, and I can just start, you know, editing whatever I need to edit here. Same thing with the samples. I just have some blocks and the bass. So nothing too crazy with the sequencer, and that's pretty much it. I am modifying this every so often. I might realize that, you know, something needs to change or update. So in case I need to, I do that. But you know, for years I didn't use a template, and it just saves a lot of time, especially if you're making a lot of the same style, the same type of music constantly. And I even have other templates too that are for other purposes, but they're really just different versions of this. Hopefully you got some value from this, and I'm really excited for Reason 13. I'll definitely be modifying this template, you know, come Reason 13 time, but I'm gonna make a video down the road for that. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment. If you do have any questions, shoot me an email. Follow me on other socials too. Have a good day, and I can't wait for Reason 13.